In 2025, the phrase cheap 9mm doesn't mean what it used to, thanks to expired Glock Gen 3 patents, aggressive Turkish and Czech production, and post-panic inventory dumps. Some of the most reliable handguns on the market are now under $500. That's a huge deal for everyday Americans who carry a pistol to work, tuck one in the nightstand, or are finally buying their first 9mm. You no longer have to roll the dice on off-brand junk, or hope your bargain gun isn't on the next recall list. Today, we're looking at serious contenders: the modular Ruger RXM, the duty-ready CZ P10C, the capacity monster Canik Mete MC9 LS, the budget tunable PSA Dagger Micro, and the ultra-practical S&W Shield Plus. Your money, your range time, and your safety are on the line. So I'm breaking down exactly which 5 pistols actually deliver no BS performance, not just brochure hype. Alright, let us get into this list. We are talking real guns that real people actually carry, not safe queens or influencer toys. So I want you thinking about your own belt, your own budget, and where these 5 actually fit in your life. Coming in at number 5, I have got the PSA Dagger Micro. This one is for the tinkerers and the budget maximizers. Imagine the footprint of a slimline carry gun. Think Glock. 43x size. But instead of 10 rounds, you are stuffing 15+1 into that same basic grip length. Palmetto pulled that off with a thin steel magazine body that squeezes every millimeter of space out of the frame. And when you feel it in the hand, it really does not seem much bigger than the older single stacks. On the range, recoil is snappy like any small 9mm, but the subtle palm swell and the rough, sandpaper-style texture help lock the gun into your hand, so it does not try to jump out during rapid strings. Where the Dagger Micro gets spicy is value, and the fine print for around $300. Sometimes even less on sale. You get an optics-ready slide cut for a shield footprint, aggressive carry cuts on the nose that help it funnel back into a holster, and a trigger that is perfectly serviceable for defensive work. The trade-off is that PSA runs massive volume, and every now and then a rough edge sneaks through. Early micro magazines had follower drag issues, and even though the newer production is much better, I still tell people to treat this gun like a project car. Deburr the feed ramp if it needs it. Cycle those mags, and run a couple hundred rounds before you trust it. If you enjoy tweaking gear and you want 15 rounds in a very small package for Glock money, minus $200, the PSA Dagger Micro makes a lot of sense. Now, maybe you are not a garage gunsmith. Maybe you want something that feels a little more like a mini race gun in your waistband. That is where number 4 comes in, the Canik Mete MC9 LS and its fancier prime sibling. The story with this pistol is redemption. When the original MC9 dropped, a lot of folks jumped on it for the size and the price, then discovered failures to return to battery, and a slide that would hang up just short of closing. Canik listened, went back to the drawing board, and the long slide versions are basically the apology tour. The MC9 LS brings a slightly longer barrel and slide, which adds a bit of weight up front and smooths out the recoil impulse, especially when you are pushing fast pairs on steel. Inside, the recoil system and extractor geometry have been revised, and those fixes show up when you run mixed ammo. The real party trick, though, is capacity and trigger. You are talking 17+1 rounds in a grip that still hides extremely well in an inside-the-waistband holster, thanks to the way the heel of the grip is rounded off instead of squared. Combine that with the classic Canik striker-fired trigger, which has very little slack, a clean wall, about a 3.5 to 4 pound break, and a ridiculously short reset, and you end up with a micro-sized gun that lets you shoot almost like a rangeful size. If you are the kind of shooter who actually uses a shot timer, this is the one on the list that will probably give you the fastest splits once you learn it. I will still throw in a no-nonsense warning here. Because of the rocky launch of the original MC9, I always tell people, buy the updated long slide, verify that you are getting the current recoil assembly, and do your own shakedown with your chosen defensive ammo. When it passes that test, the Canik Mete MC9 LS is a feature beast that rewards a shooter who trains and wants a carry gun that does not feel like a compromise. Before we move into the top 3, let us pump the brakes for a second and talk about something most people ignore when they look at price tags. And that is the cost of the ecosystem. A cheap pistol with $50 magazines and weird holster fit is not really a cheap pistol over 5 years. The Stoeger STR9 is a perfect example. It shoots fine, but mags can be expensive and hard to find locally, and holster options are thin. On the flip side, guns that share common patterns with Glock or long-running American lines tap into a massive supply of reasonably priced magazines, holsters, and parts. And When we are talking about budget guns, that matters just as much as the sticker on the shelf. With that in mind, let us slide into number 3, the grown-up, boring, in the best possible way option, the S&W M&P9 Shield Plus. If the first two on this list are for hobbyists and enthusiasts, this one is for the person who wants to buy a gun once, learn it, and then just carry it every day without drama. The Shield line basically kicked off the modern single-stack carry craze, and the M&P9 Shield Plus is the fully matured, double-stack evolution of that idea. Street prices usually land right around $400 with rebates, and what you are buying there is track record. On the range, the M&P9 Shield Plus has a reputation for feeding pretty much every common defensive hollow point on the market. That polished, wide feed ramp and generous throat mean whether you prefer big cavity bullets like Federal HST or polymer tip designs like Hornady Critical Defense, this gun just nose-dives them into the chamber and keeps on running. The 18-degree grip angle and low-bore axis make it surprisingly soft shooting for how small it is, especially if you have ever fought a snappy pocket 9. Smith ditched the old hinge trigger shoe and dropped in a flat face design with a bladed safety, so you get a smooth take-up, a defined wall, and a predictable break that makes accuracy under stress a lot easier. The ergonomics are what really seal the deal for a lot of people. The texture is that Goldilocks middle ground. It is aggressive enough that the gun does not twist in your hand during rapid strings, but the peaks are rounded so it does not sandpaper your skin. If you are carrying inside the waistband without a thick undershirt, holsters for the M&P9 Shield Plus are everywhere. Magazines are not cheap, but they are readily available. And the platform has not been the subject of ugly drop safety scares or big recall campaigns. If you want a deep concealment 9mm that you can basically set and forget, this is the safe bet in the lineup. Alright, moving into the top 2. This is where philosophy of use starts to matter even more. Number 2 on the list is the Ruger RXM, the modular collaboration between Ruger and Magpul. This is not just another polymer striker gun. It is a full-blown chassis system that brings P320 style ideas down into the sub-$500 world. The serialized part of the gun is a stainless steel fire control chassis that carries the rails, trigger parts, and ejector. The grip frame around it is just plastic, which means you can swap grip modules in different sizes and colors for around $40 or $50 shipped straight to your door without an FFL. On the shooting side, that steel chassis gives the slide more continuous rail engagement than the little metal tabs you see in a lot of traditional polymer frames. The result is a recoil impulse that feels smoother and flatter, especially when you are running hotter defensive loads. The Magpul influence on the grip is obvious the first time you pick it up. Instead of the steep Glock-style grip angle that points some people high, the Ruger RXM sits closer to a classic 1911 or CZ75 angle, which means most shooters will present the gun and see the sights already pretty close to lined up. The texture is lifted from their TSP pattern, so it bites enough to control the gun without absolutely destroying your cover garment. One of the big advantages here is the way Ruger leaned into Glock compatibility. The pistol feeds from standard pattern 15-round magazines, and the internal geometry is designed so that a lot of Glock Gen 3 style parts will drop in. That opens up a huge aftermarket for triggers, barrels, and sights, and it also means finding holsters is easy because many Glock 19 rigs will work with minor adjustment. The flip side, and we have to be honest about it, is that the same geometry that plays well with the aftermarket has drawn political heat. Because the RXM can physically accept certain illegal conversion devices, it has already attracted attention from state attorneys, general, and gun control groups. And there is a real chance Ruger will eventually roll out a second generation with tweaked internals. For an everyday gun owner, that means you are getting an insanely versatile pistol with great ergonomics and a ton of future upgrade options, sitting right around the $400 to $450 price point. But you should be aware that the early guns may end up being the most flexible versions on the market. If you like the idea of one handgun that can cover concealed carry, home defense, and training duty simply by swapping grip modules and optics, the Ruger RXM is hard to ignore. That brings us to number 1, the value king of this entire category, the CZ-P10C. This is the gun that really breaks people's brains when they look at the price tag. Mechanically and materially, this thing was built from the ground up to sit in the same ring as the Glock 19 and the HK VP9 as a full-blown duty pistol. We are talking a fiber-reinforced polymer frame that stays rigid under heat, a cold hammer-forged barrel that will just keep holding accuracy deep into round counts most of us will never reach, and a nitride-treated slide and barrel that laugh at sweat, rain, and humidity. So why is it showing up in the same case as the budget blasters for $320? $340. That is where the economics come in. After CZ acquired Colt and restructured, they pushed hard to move inventory and make room for newer models, and the CZ P10C ended up being heavily discounted across a lot of distributors. The performance tier never changed. Only the street price did. On the firing line, the pistol has that deep tang cut that lets you get your hand way up behind the slide, dropping the bore axis and making the gun shoot flatter than a lot of its direct competitors. The pyramid-style grip texture is aggressive, almost like skateboard tape molded into the frame, so the gun plants itself in your hands even when they are wet, sweaty, or cold. There are a couple of quirks to know about so you are not surprised. Out of the box, the slide stop levers and the magazine release can feel stiff to the point where new shooters think something is wrong. In reality, the tolerances are just tight. After a good 200 to 400 round break-in and some reload drills, they usually smooth out nicely. Optics-ready variants are common in stores now, which is awesome. But you will probably need to budget for an extra mounting plate to mate your favorite red dot to the factory cut. Even with that added, you are still looking at a fully vetted, optics-ready 15+1 duty pistol on your nightstand or on your hip for well under the old school price of entry. If I had exactly $400 and I needed a handgun today to protect my life, the CZ P10C would be the one I would walk out of the store with. It gives you the durability and shootability of a serious service pistol at a budget buyer price, and that is why it comfortably sits at number 1 on this no BS list. Alright, that is our no BS. Look at the 5 best sub-dollars 509mm pistols on the market right now. Hopefully this helped you sort the true workhorses from the rebate bin gimmicks and gave you a clearer picture of where your next dollar should actually go. Drop a comment and let me know which one you would trust on your belt, what you are carrying today, and if there is a sleeper budget gun you think I should test next. I am also running one more budget 9mm off camera that might crash this list later, so stay tuned. Hit like, subscribe, share this with a buddy who is shopping, and I will see you in the next one.